Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhaled frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Yes, not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
All right, everybody, it's the last hour. Toker Talk Radio, Friday, November 1st. We're here with Brian the Red hanging out in the studio. So there's some terrible news today. You've probably seen the headlines of a man who pulled out an assault rifle and started spraying bullets in Terminal 3 at LAX. Los Angeles International Airport. Killed a TSA agent. Apparently had a note on him, said he was going after TSA and pigs. I assume law enforcement, right? So I don't want to dwell on this thing, and maybe it's too soon, but I just want to say, as someone who flies for a living almost once a month, sure am glad they made me take my shoes off and my belt off and empty my pockets and take the laptop out of the bag and make sure everything's in separate bins and put my coat in the bin and don't have anything in your hands or too much metal on as you go through the little rape scanner to make sure that you got nothing against your body. And then if that isn't good enough, you got somebody groping you down for minimum wage. Sure am glad we went through all that, huh? Because we're all safer. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about marijuana, because that's what this show is all about. And like I said, huge news here. In our first interview with Anthony Johnson, his first audio interview since doing the petition, since putting in the initiative, saying that New Approach Oregon will not continue forward, that it is a deal breaker to lose home grow or to institute a per se DUID. Now, I was running out of time on the interview because I could have pressed him a little bit on some stuff. Now, per se DUID, do we mean like if they came up with rebuttable presumption, would we go for that? That was the compromise in Colorado, was making it per se, but a rebuttable presumption. Here's the difference. Per se means guilty. Rebuttable presumption means guilty until proven innocent. That's the difference. Rebuttable presumption just means you get a chance to prove you're innocent. I, for one, am not completely against a per se limit, but I'm completely against the low per se limits that we've seen so far. Like, there is science to show that if you've recently toked, that your THC, active THC in the bloodstream is going to be above 100 or so, right? It's going to be in the triple digits. If they came up with a per se that said if you were above 100 nanograms per milliliter, I'd have a hard time arguing against it. It'd be hard to see, because in this case, and the argument would be that somebody might not be impaired, but the point that would be hard to fight is the fact that it would be someone who just got behind the wheel after smoking. And I think really that's what people fear, right? It's not necessarily that we fear someone might have been smoking pot and then drove. It's that they're actively smoking pot and driving. I mean, maybe we don't fear that, but the mainstream does, right? So if there was a number that said, okay, you have just been smoking and then you got behind the wheel, then it would be a little easier to defend because he could say it's a matter of responsibility. You weren't being a responsible cannabis consumer by smoking and then getting right behind the wheel. But even with that, even that is problematic because we got edibles. Immediately eat an edible and you won't be above 100, but maybe an hour later you will. And maybe for a longer time. So trying to come up with a magic number, it's not doable at this point in the science. So I applaud Anthony Johnson for his stance on this, and I can't wait to get this written up because this is a big exclusive here. So we want to tell the whole world about it. Also, we'll be taking your calls here at 971-533-7111 if you're interested in expressing your opinion as well. We're also looking for people who want to be our correspondents. On yesterday's show, we had Fran Janik calling in from Vermont. I would really love to have someone in every state that, if something was going down in their state, they would call in and be our correspondent.
We've talked about this before, having people from other areas call and maybe just update us on what's happening in their local area. If they don't know what's going on in their state, they can find out more or whatever.
It'd be very helpful.
It is. It's good.
And that's our goal here is we just want to be, the kind of information hub of the marijuana reform community. All right. I want to dig a little bit too. We're going to take a break here in a second, but when we come back, we're going to talk about this poll that came up off a Huffington Post where 1 in 4 Americans say they'd buy pot if it became legal. Kind of underpinning one of the arguments of the Project Sam people who say, well, if we legalize, there'll be so much more use. Use will run rampant. Well, this kind of says, yeah, if it's legal, more people, not only would people who don't use it want to use it, but people who do use it would use it more often, would buy it more often. So what does that mean for our rhetoric? What does that mean for our arguments when we face these opponents that can look at this poll and say, see, we were right? Well, I'll tell you what it means when we come back. Stick around.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you don't just want any attorney. You want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Lauren Vasquez knows the details of California marijuana law from both a personal and professional angle. Lauren Vasquez rose from the ranks of college normal activist to become one of the Bay Area's best marijuana lawyers. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com. The number again is 855-MMJ-LAWS, 855-665-5297 for your fired-up lawyer, Lauren Vasquez. Lauren Vasquez is an activist attorney you can trust. Call today. Hey, Tokers and Tokettes, Radical Russ here to introduce you to my friend Matt and all the staff at Lush LED Lighting. Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED Lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. If you thought LEDs were meet the tech of today, Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Let's just say I appear at a lot of events with the masters of indoor horticulture, and the harvests I saw from Lush LED Lighting were big, tight, sticky, and very effective. Check out LushLEDlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Double your rewards and lower your expenses with Lush LED Lighting.
Welcome back, everyone. 10 after the hour. Weed is by your side. It's always been there. Always been there. Always been there. That's MC Chris, of course. Welcome back to Toker Talk Radio, and we've got a caller on the line here. One of our music editors is on with us. How you doing?
Hey, Russ, how you doing?
Is this Bob?
Yeah.
Oh, Electric Bob's on the line. How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing good. You just you said something about corresponding, and I'm in Arizona, and I know what's going on here, so I figured I'd correspond.
All right, let's correspond, man. What's the latest in Arizona?
Where actually there is the ACLU is suing for people to use oil care because there's a kid in, I think it's Peoria or Scottsdale, who is about, I think he's either 2 or 4. He has Dravet syndrome, and they're ACL suing so we can use that because under the law right now, they're freaking they're going into shops and arresting people for edibles and wax and hash because of our law here that says that that hash is separate under the law.
Yeah, and I've heard some things about these dispensaries in Arizona where, a lot of the patients won't even bother with them. They just go to the, patient co-ops.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, from what I've heard, no one goes to the dispensaries here. We just go to the co-ops because it's a headache going to the dispensaries because half the time they don't have what you want. Most of the time, say if you want to just get a gram, they won't do it. And you can't, like I said before, you can't look at what you want beforehand. It's like a freaking commissary.
Yeah, it's these laws pass, and then these officials, when they implement them, it's like they're implementing them badly on purpose.
They are, because they never wanted it here to begin with. So all the prosecutors are like, oh, well, let's just, because there's people getting, because the legal limit here to carry is 2.5 ounces. There's people going to jail for having over 2.5, for having over a gram. Cop, they said, oh, here's my card. Here's what I have. They weigh it out. Oh, it weighs 2.6. Come on, you're going with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's just, and there's no protections under the law. There's just Prop 203, and say if you get caught growing, you get caught with hash, you get caught with more than you're supposed to, it's you go to jail. It's like, why even have a card if A, you can't grow, 2, you can't have the better quality stuff that's going to, say, if you're medicating and you don't like smoking a lot, you're probably going to go smoke some hash. In fact, you need 2 or 3 hits and you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of sitting there smoking a joint, polluting your lungs up. So yeah, it's ridiculous here in Arizona, and prosecutors are going full force with prosecuting people who've been caught with BHO and wax.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, because I talk to people and people are like, well, I want to get a card, but there's all this crap that I have to deal with, and on top of that, it's $300, and there's no discounts for SSI people or anyone on disability, anyone with any type of like mental illness that might need it.
$300 to get your card?
What?
It's $300 to get your card?
Yeah, because the state wants $125. To go to the doctor, it's $125, and to get your records, it's another $75.
Right.
So yeah, it comes around to around $300 for a card in Arizona. So basically, if you have money, it's good to get a card. But from what I've seen, it's only people that are getting licenses so they can get high because they have the money to do it.
Right.
Patients here don't.
And that's the conundrum here, is that we had a similar thing that happened in Oregon where they raised the fees, right, from $100 to $200, and part of their rationale was, well, this will discourage some of the people who are just getting marijuana, medical marijuana to get high. I'm like, no, it'll be just the opposite. It'll be just the opposite. Patients who need it as medicine often need it as medicine because they can't afford some of these prescriptions or don't want to use them. And, people that are really, really sick, supposedly, the real patients that these lawmakers think of, are the kind of people who can't have a job. They're on disability. You double the price on them and you effectively price them out of the medical marijuana card. Meanwhile, guy who is getting high, well, he's got a job, man. It sucks that it costs more, but he'll pay more for it.
Exactly, because he doesn't have to worry about it. He has the money to make it. He's like, oh, I'm not going to get arrested now, and I can get high. I might as well go do it.
Yeah. So they have the exact opposite result of what they're trying for. They think they're going going to filter out the patient, the recreational users, and they do just the opposite. It's so ironic because the longer I examine every angle of this, the more I see that if you really want to do it the right way, it's not just make it legal, but make it legal as hell. You know what I mean?
Yeah, make it like you said before. Make it like broccoli.
Like broccoli.
You don't hear anyone getting shot over broccoli.
Yeah.
You don't hear about broccoli patches getting upended.
Yeah, and then
you
of
hear
course
about broccoli producers getting SWAT raided.
The rebuttal on that from some people would be, yeah, but broccoli doesn't get you high, and that's true. We have to admit that marijuana is a plant that when you take it alters your perceptions, and that if kids break into it and get some, it's not a good thing. They got developing brains, so it's not exactly broccoli, but the principle is that we need to make it as accessible for the people who want it as possible, so that it doesn't carry this huge profit to rip people off or break in their homes or anything.
Yeah, and then right after the dispensaries came up, there was a few people that just said, "Screw it, I'm not going to get a card since I can't home grow anymore."
Mm-hmm. Oh, and that was the worst thing with Arizona is, when the law first passes, everyone can home grow because there's no dispensaries, and then as dispensary after dispensary opens up, the people within 25 miles of it can't grow. It's the point now where only 4% of the population of Arizona lives somewhere where it's possible to grow.
Yeah, and they don't want to help people here in Arizona. They just want to make money. If they're not making money off of it, they could care less about you. And that's honestly how it is in other places. But I just think it just pisses me off because there's so many people that need it that can't get it and are threatened with jail time and going to Tent City and dealing with Sheriff Joe's dumbass. Mm-hmm. And it's just
there's someone who needs to smoke a joint right there. Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Yeah. Let's get Joe Arpaio and Stephen Harper from Canada. We'll get them in a session. Get those two guys to smoke a joint. Yeah, it's awful what's going on in Arizona, man, because one of the things that frustrates me is that it is something to celebrate when we say, wow, there's 20 medical marijuana states. But then I think of patients in Arizona and Illinois and New Jersey. For them, it might as well not even be a medical marijuana state.
Exactly. And speaking of New Jersey, Ed Fortune, the New Jersey weed man, is doing time right now in New Jersey for I think possession or something like that. So he's doing time right now. He's doing like 15 days in county. Yeah. And they let him out last month to fly to California to get his medical treatment, but it's just ridiculous. You're going to let this guy out to go to California to get his cannabis treatment, and when he gets back, you're going to treat him as a criminal.
Yeah, it's stunning. It's stunning, and so that's why when take it with a grain of salt when we say that there's 20 medical marijuana states, because that's a political victory, but it's not a medical victory because there's so many patients in those states right now who cannot benefit from their medical program. They're either too poor, they can't document what they've got the wrong condition, they don't have enough of that condition, whatever it might be.
Yeah, exactly. And I would get my card here if I could home grow, but it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. And Arizona might as well not be a medical state, to be honest, because the only people that are using it are the same people that were smoking when it was illegal. They're just smoking it legal now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I sent you the story on the local news here about the one reporter who went in and gave them false information and got a card and then went back and nothing happened to him. And under Prop 203, giving false information is, I think it's like it's one of the lesser misdemeanors, but still you get punished for it like you should, because you don't give false information to people, regardless.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I want to thank you for calling in. I appreciate this perspective from Arizona because, again, like I said, a lot of people don't recognize that medical marijuana state does not necessarily mean medical marijuana state the way that we think of it here in Oregon, California, Washington, or Colorado.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was nice talking to you, Russ.
Nice talking to you too, Bob. Thank you so much for everything you're doing and the Electric Tuesday music. We appreciate that. It's our pleasure here at 420 Radio to have such great fans and great listeners who keep contributing, keep us on the air, and keep this fun happening. And speaking of fun, we got Left Wing Larry in the place. We got Brian the Red.
I think we all know what that sound means.
And we got we got Radical Russ's tricorder telling us it's 4:20 here in the Pacific Time Zone. So enjoy.
Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
I'm Radical Russ Belville, and I want to thank you for listening to 420 Radio. We couldn't survive without you and our sponsors, and I'd like you to check out one of our prime sponsors, the National Cannabis Coalition. I've been working with NCC since June of 2012, and I'm proud to be part of the team they have assembled. National Cannabis Coalition is building the partnerships with reformers, lawmakers, and industry we need to be successful. Visit the National Cannabis Coalition website at nationalcannabiscoalition.com or the easier-to-remember ncc420.com. That's where you'll get the exclusive first look at my radical rants, as well as informative articles from the nation's top cannabis pundits. Visit ncc420.com today, and if you have your phone handy, text Russ to 420-420 to support NCC and 420 Radio. It's a free text message that helps us help you end adult marijuana prohibition. Learn more at ncc420.com, and thanks for supporting independent marijuana legalization public radio.
I'm a reefer smoking man.
Wood Pipes Smoke Shop and Speakeasy is your source for cannabis community gear in southern Wisconsin. Owners Brian and Tammy Wood are located in Kendall, just outside of Madison, and they've got everything for the smoking enthusiast, including a full assortment of pipes, water pipes, hookahs, bubblers, one-hitters, and so much more. They're open noon to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday and can help you with your detoxification therapies as well. Call 608-466-7473 or email woodpipes@yahoo.com for more information. That's 608-466-7473 or email woodpipes@yahoo.com. And as always, go pack go. 420radio.org presents Canna Truths with Denton Ramsey from Waco, Texas, every Thursday at noon Pacific, with replays Friday at 5 a.m., Sunday at 5 p.m., and Mondays at midnight, right here on 420radio.org.
Welcome back, everybody. Toker Talk Radio. Sorry for the long break there. Had to get the tweet out on the breaking news. Anthony Johnson from New Approach, Oregon, stating on the air here with 420 Radio that no home grow and per se DUIDs are deal breakers for New Approach, Oregon. They will not negotiate those points. They will not move forward with legalization if that is the compromise. So you heard it here first. on 420radio.org. Welcome back. We got a caller who's been patiently waiting on the line from the 610 area code. Welcome to Toker Talk Radio.
Hi, Russ. It's Howard. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good, Howard. What's up?
Yeah, and the other guy, forget his name. Kit Brian. Sorry about that. Russ, I had a question. I heard this like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I listened to the Danny Bonaducci show out of Seattle, and I love like your bits in your radio show. And I've always loved like the old timey radio guy and the other bits you do. And I found them so creative. And like a few weeks ago, I heard like one of the guys on the show started doing like this old timey radio guy sports announcer bit, and I was just taken aback because I always think of you whenever I hear that. My question is that some kind of like radio guy bit that's been done, or did he really like steal that from?
I don't know. I don't think Danny Bonaducci's show is stealing from me by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's a standard thing. I mean,
it's a regurgitated bit.
Yeah, I'm sure I picked it up from somebody somewhere. I mean, it's something that old timey voice, say? Yeah.
I love it. It's so good. I thought that was you. I thought you created that, but I really enjoy that. So I just wanted to tell you about that.
Yeah, it's like another voice is like, "You're back in my day," you know, the old the grumpy old man bit, which is something whippersnippers. That goes back to like, I mean, Dana Carvey kind of did that, but I'm sure someone did it before him.
Okay, because I'm interested in radio, and also I admire your podcasting because I think you're doing very well in it. And I don't know if you have formal training, but I think you're doing really good.
Well, thank you. No, I have no formal training.
Spreading the word in your activism. And I also just want to say, I'm just not here to, trying to butter you up or blow smoke up your ass. But I think you look younger with your head shave, Russ.
Well, thank you. Yeah, there's no gray. I should look younger.
Not like me, anyways.
I just wanted to say that. Be well, you guys.
All right, thanks, Howard. Appreciate your call.
Support you. Thank you.
Right on, thanks.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for calling in, Howard. And we've got Left Wing Larry in the studio who says he's got news from Florida for us.
Yeah, I've got some breaking news from Florida.
All right.
I just heard on MSNBC.
Because you're Left Wing Larry.
Yes, I am Left Wing Larry. I heard that Charlie Crist is just announced he's running for governor. Now, for those of you from Florida, you may remember Charlie Crist as the Republican. Mm-hmm. Well, he's running on the Democrat ticket now. Mm-hmm. And you might wonder, how does this tie into cannabis? Well, Charlie Crist wasn't that 420 friendly when he was governor as a Republican.
Right.
But his best friend is John Morgan, and John Morgan is the one pumping all the money into the Puffin campaign, or the new Puffin, it's now called
United for Care.
United for Care, which gets away from that
Puffin
smoke
acronym.
Puffin.
Yeah.
Finally broke that mold.
Yeah. Well, this is good news, and in the other direction on this, looking from the John Morgan direction, a lot of people were criticizing John Morgan's pumping the money into medical marijuana, saying he was just doing it for the potential that Charlie Crist would run. His buddy Charlie Crist would run as a Democrat, and then that would give an issue that Crist can differentiate himself from Republicans on.
Well, he's already leading by over 10 points.
Yeah. And
the polling is already...
I always thought that criticism was a little unfounded, though, because to think that someone wants to support medical marijuana and put all that money into it purely for Machiavellian political reasons, what, he couldn't just see the reason in it? He just couldn't see the compassion in it?
He has the history of it, where his father, who had cancer, and this is John Morgan, his father had cancer, and his brother went out and bought on the black market for his father, and it was the only thing that relieved his father's pain in the end and allowed him to eat. And so, John Morgan has very upstanding reasons for wanting medical marijuana in Florida. And being a refugee from Florida myself, this is very good news. Very good news.
It's awesome news. And to hear, Florida's looking at medical marijuana, Missouri and Arkansas are, Arkansas is still trying to go forward with both medical and I think a decrim. Missouri is looking at a legalization or a medical. I mean, the South is starting to break for medical marijuana.
Right.
And that Texas poll that come out, 58% support in Texas.
Right. That's unheard of.
It's just an amazing time to be a marijuana activist, let me tell you. All right, let me get to another point that I needed to make. I have to go back to my notes here. This story on 1 in 4 Americans say they'd buy pot if it became legal. Because I wanted to talk a little bit about this, what's going to happen as it's legalized, and the fact that use will go up. One of the big fears that Kevin Sabet and all these guys talk about is how use will go up. And folks, it will, because it's a good product. Marijuana sells itself, right? It's a good thing for a lot of people. So it is going to go up. And according to this poll, let me give you some of the details from it. They said 26% would buy pot on a rare occasion if it was legal in their state. And that compares to 9% who would buy now. So we're talking about almost 3 times more people would buy pot that are buying it now. And then people who would buy often went from 1% to 4%. So it quadrupled for the chronic consumer. So in this, let's see what else they have in the details of this. They said 43% said that they would still buy alcohol more often, and only 23% say they would buy marijuana more often if it was legal. So that made a difference whether or not they had tried alcohol in the past. And they were divided on predicting how legalizing marijuana would affect the cost. 29% thought the price would increase. 25% said it would decrease. 15% said the price would remain the same. And they have different numbers based on the age of the people that were responding as well. So it's just very interesting here. The people under age 30 were most likely to say that they would buy it if it was legal, 35%. So over a third of people under the age of 30 said they'd buy it if it was legal. And those that buy it now, 16%. Even those among 65 and older, almost none of whom said they'd ever buy marijuana now, 9% say they'd buy it occasionally if it was legal. This is the important number. The 30 and under number goes from 16% to 35%. So it about doubles, right? So the senior citizen number goes from zip to 9%. That's a huge increase, right? Especially when you consider that the number of people that are over the age of 65, the actual volume of that demographic, is probably pretty close to the volume of people aged 21 to 30. I don't know the exact stats on that. I'd have to look up on the census site. But it underlines my point that when the marijuana becomes legal, use is going to go up, and our opponents are going to want to seize that data. They're going to want to say, aha, see, more people are using it. That's a bad thing. But if more people are using it that are over the age of 65, and they're not popping a leave,
that's
down
on the barbiturates and the opiates.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I've often said the AARP card ought to be your medical marijuana card, but I mean, just in your own experience, coming here from Florida, I imagine you've been able to kick off a lot of pills.
Oh yes, I'm using no NSAIDs now, none whatsoever. The inflammation is taken care of by the cannabis, by the natural plant.
Yeah, and you're at an age when a lot of people will move to like Arizona, where it's nice and dry because of the inflammation situation. Here, Pacific Northwest, still pretty humid, not as humid as Florida, but that's not been an issue.
No. Well, I went for a walk one day in the rain, and that's not a good idea. It took me about a day and a half to get over it. I don't think I'll be walking in the rain anymore.
Otherwise, that means you'll be staying in the house for the next 4 months here.
Well, I've got a car in the garage that I can get into.
But this is the point: is that the use will go up. There will be more people using marijuana. The people who are currently using marijuana will use more of it. We have to make sure that we frame this as, did harm go up? Did harm go up? Because if a lot of people who now have access to legal weed are buying that instead of buying a lot of alcohol, then that's probably a good thing. Mark Kleiman even says that. The Washington State pot czar says if we find, because the data are a little, sketchy so far, and this is, a caveat we could say about all marijuana data. All marijuana data are sketchy because of the prohibition, right? It's hard to get any accurate figures. But the marijuana data are a little sketchy onto whether or not alcohol and marijuana are substitutes, or are they complements. They do know that alcohol and cocaine are complements. You got cocaine, you'll do cocaine. You got alcohol, you do alcohol. You got both alcohol and cocaine, you'll do both. And you'll do more of each.
Right. They counteract each other.
Right. That's right. You get drunk, and then the cocaine picks you back up, and and you party more, and you get more drunk.
I think it's better than coffee.
Larry. But the thing with the marijuana is that are they complementary? When you're drinking, do you also want to smoke pot? I've seen some of that. However, most of my experience, and maybe Brian can back me up on this, is that in general, people smoke pot or drink. I don't see much of it together.
There are some people who, do drink with the alcohol, but they, as Dr. Mitch has pointed out a couple of times, they offset each other. They suppress each other's absorption. So they influence the absorption rate of each other, and so it takes longer for both the alcohol and the cannabis to get absorbed and digested by your body.
Now, we have seen that, use of alcohol and cannabis together are much worse than either of the two of them independently if you're going to drive.
Yeah, for impairment factor, it definitely you want to steer clear of combining those substances, especially if it's medibles. Looks like we got another call coming in.
I was going to say, with one exception, and that is it's a neuroprotectant for those who binge drink.
Yeah,
that's true.
That is very well established. It is a neuroprotectant for those who binge drink, and it's saving a lot of high school and college age kids.
Yeah. Well, that's something to think about too, is the increase in marijuana use as a harm reduction measure. If indeed we find out marijuana and alcohol are complementary, and I think so far the preliminary data from medical marijuana states makes a good case for that, where we've seen alcohol consumption drop in like California and Colorado and so forth. We'll talk some more about that. We got some calls coming in as well that we will get to, but we got to take a short little break because my nanograms aren't high enough. I think I'm into the single digits, damn it. Let's take care of that. Be right back.
The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio, The Russ Belville Show, Ganja John, and Cascadia Concentrates, among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Adam's meticulous designs are individually crafted and screened in vibrant, high-definition color. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420radio.org.
Let him bring in the beat. Legalize me. Don't criticize.
I'm just overjoyed. I've been cannabis activist for 40 years.
We are turning the corner on a failed policy that's been disastrous for our communities, and things are going to get better.
80 years ago, we repealed alcohol prohibition in this state. We did it prior to the federal government, and we're doing the same thing when it comes to marijuana. We are a step ahead, and we will continue to lead the way. It means I'm going to smoke a lot of weed tonight. Woo!
Some call it marijuana.
You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show.
Some of them call it ganja. Never mind, legalize it.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 20s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stop arresting law-abiding citizens because they prefer marijuana over alcohol. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges. We're unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people each year simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They're average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
I'm not going to ask you again now. What did you smoke? Tell me now. All right. I smoked herbs.
Oh, no, he smoked herbs. Welcome back. It's Toker Talk Radio, 41 after the hour with Left Wing Larry and Brian the Red hanging out here at Rolla J Studios. Had a good time at the Halloween costume contest last night at the world-famous Cannabis Cafe. If you want to see my pictures, just check out my Ustream at RB Show 420. I'm not Ustream, Instagram, sorry. So many. Instagram at RB Show 420, and you can see my pictures. I did the pinhead pothead costume that went over quite well. It went over so well that I won the costume contest, which means that I won this. I won this jar. Marijuana. Skunk Magazine logo on there. Not focusing.
And also a shirt.
Yeah, I got a shirt that I gave it Larry. It was the Cannabis Cannabis Cup
from San Francisco.
Yeah, the
medical cup of last year that we went to.
That's right. I'm just collecting T-shirts for Larry now because I have plenty of shirts. But this jar of marijuana. So this is what I won for the costume contest, and I don't even know what it is.
It's an indica. I think it's some kind of kush. I think either a raspberry or a blackberry.
Well, Brian
some
says
variation.
Brian says it's a kush, so that's what it's going to be.
I believe. Let's check the nose.
The nose knows.
Let's check out the.
How's that smell? Good stuff.
It smells excellent.
All right.
Yeah, it's got definitely some berry terpenes in there.
All right, I want to come back just real quick. I've got a caller on the line, and we'll get to you in just a moment, but I had to wrap up this last bit that I was talking about. There was a piece in the New York Times that was entitled, "Few Problems with Cannabis for California," that basically outlined what I was just telling you on the fact that marijuana and alcohol seem to be complementary. It had some other points it wanted to make that I thought were really good. They talk about how, everybody warned that if we legalized marijuana, terrible things would happen, the sky would fall, and it didn't. What they point out, this is from the New York Times, they say research suggests that marijuana has become an alcohol substitute for younger people here and in other states that have legalized medical marijuana, and that while driving under the influence of any intoxicant is dangerous, driving after smoking marijuana is less dangerous than after drinking alcohol. Now, this is interesting because we always make the point that marijuana is safer, right? But usually we're making that point with respect to safer for the person who's using it. And this makes the point that, because we always have to say, don't drive impaired, don't drive impaired. But even someone who is impaired on cannabis is less dangerous than someone who's mildly impaired on alcohol.
They're definitely more careful, I can tell you that.
Sorry about that. Didn't have your mic on.
I had to drive home from the Cannabis Cafe last night, and I was, these hills are steep around here.
If you're from Florida, they seem awfully steep, don't they? They also note in this New York Times piece that there is no evidence that its use by teenagers has risen since the 1996 legalization, though it is an open question whether outright legalization would make the drug that much easier for young people to get, thus contribute to its increased use. Well, look, the way the medical system works in California, anyone 18 and older can walk into a tent, pick a word off of a chart, and say that that's the condition they have, and for $40, get their recommendation, and then go shop in dispensaries. How would legalization be any easier than that? By saving $40, I guess, right? But come on, any 18-year-old who wants to smoke in California is going to get their $40 together, $45, and get their card. So I don't see it becoming much easier than it already is. Another piece that they debunk here, a lot of people worried that, and you still hear it today. You hear it with the Colorado and Washington. Well, if we tax marijuana too much, the black market will just still function, right? And the New York Times says, imposing a local tax on medical marijuana, as Oakland, San Jose, and other communities have done, has not pushed consumers to drug dealers as some analysts expected. Presumably, that is because it is so easy to get reliable and high-quality marijuana legally. A couple of professors also, Mark Anderson from Montana State and Daniel Rees from University of Colorado, did a study that found that there is a correlation between increased marijuana use and less alcohol use for people aged 18 to 29. And Mark Kleiman from UCLA, who's the Washington pot czar, says, quote, if it turns out that cannabis and alcohol are substitutes, then by my scoring system, legalizing cannabis is obviously a good idea. Alcohol is so much more of a problem than cannabis ever has been. There you go, right in the New York Times. All right, let's go to the phone lines here where we've got Electric Bob who's calling back in with a follow-up. How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing good. I had to take a break to up my nanograms.
Everybody's got to do that. So what's on your mind?
I just wanted to talk about, speaking of shirts, I was at Goodwill yesterday and I got the papers, I got a raw shirt for like $3.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I actually wanted to talk about how the dispensaries are trying to budge out the patient clubs out here.
Okay.
They're pushing big to do it just so they can have a monopoly. That's how it always is. But yeah, the licensed dispensaries here are trying to push the little guys out.
How are they doing that?
From what I know from right now, there's a dispensary that are suing a few places because they're saying, oh, you guys are doing illegally. This is not legal. You're not licensed. And it's also they can just have a monopoly on everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's again, Arizona. It's not that great of a medical marijuana state.
Well, how are these patient? I mean, these patient clubs are getting by right now by what? By saying that they're just your law allows you to share with each other freely.
Yeah, well, that, and I think there's a provision in Prop 203 that says patient to patient is okay as long as there's no remuneration for it.
Right.
So they say, oh, it's donation. You're donating so we can grow for you, which it makes sense because growing costs money.
Sure.
But yeah, there's been a few places that have been raided. I don't know any of the court cases or anything, but I know that there has been a few places that have been raided by Phoenix PD. But guess what? None of the licensed dispensaries have been raided.
Right. Well, this just illustrates that, the first thing about prohibition we always say is that you can't repeal the law of supply and demand. And that's why, no matter how hard you try to prohibit marijuana, as long as someone wants to buy it and someone wants to sell it, it will be bought and sold. The second level of that, though, is that the buyer wants to have a reasonable price and the seller wants to make a reasonable living. And what Arizona has done and some other states have done is tilted the playing field so much to one side or the other, or not allowed the level playing field for all of the players here, that they're, in a sense, amplifying a prohibition. The patient clubs that have sprung up in Phoenix or in all about Arizona are getting a decent price for the cannabis. What does it cost, say, for if I wanted to get a quarter ounce in a patient club?
It maybe $75 to $90 tops.
Okay.
But yeah, the dispensaries are charging street prices.
Well, so what is that street price?
Why even bother get a card when you're still going to pay $60 for an eighth?
Okay, so it's 60 an eighth in a dispensary, and how much an eighth for the patient club?
If you're at a patient club, depending on what it is, anywhere from I'd say $30 to $50 tops.
Okay.
Sometimes $60, but that's very rare because the patient clubs are. We know that you might not have enough money. We're going to help you out. They're all about helping people out. The dispensaries are all about how much more money can we make? Can we up the price? Can we do something else to make more money? Can we cut corners here and cut corners there?
Well, that's the effect of any business. Any business is going to be that way. And if we were just talking about recreational pot shops, then
it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, I wouldn't have, but there wouldn't be much to complain about there. But we are talking about sick people trying to get medicine here, and that's where you see a lot of these compassion clubs springing up and people doing things out of the goodness of their heart that a normal business wouldn't do, right? But there's got to be some level in between. There's got to be somewhere where we can have regulations. I don't want there to just be mass unregulation, because while there are good people that run good patient lounges, there are also scumbags who don't care about mold and pesticides and are also into it for a buck too. We got to be honest about that. But when you set the regulations so onerous, you set the fees so high, and you make the program so restrictive that the natural market can't play, right? It can't function that way. You've regulated out the possibility of it functioning, then the black market will take up the slack, and it is.
Yeah, the little guy has no chance in Arizona. If you want to just be someone who, like, hey, I'm a patient, you're a patient, let's all just work this thing together and regulate ourselves. Doesn't Colorado have self-regulation?
Oh, no, Colorado is very highly regulated from the state.
Oh, it is?
The marijuana enforcement division that they have. But it's going to be interesting as we see the legalizations play out over the next couple of years, because Washington State, you've got a situation where it's highly regulated and not vertically integrated. So that means you can be either a grower or a processor or a retailer. Colorado, highly regulated and vertically integrated. You have to be all three things. And in Oregon, what Anthony Johnson told us would be very lightly regulated and encouraging many of the small, only $1,000 license fee, right? So when this plays out, and after about 3-4 years, they see, oh, well, look how well Oregon did and how little problems they had compared to Colorado or Washington. That's what's really going to tell. But the problem is, over those next 4 or 5 years, people are going to lose money. Patients are going to go without medicine. It's going to be tough to get through.
Yeah, and $1,000, that isn't bad. You can get 4 people together, $250 each, and start your own business.
Yeah,
start your own club. Start helping people out.
Yeah, and that's something, after we had the interview, Anthony and I got to talking, just off the mic a little bit. And I'm not going to tell tales out of school or anything, but one of the things that we brought up is that the tax that he's proposing there on the marijuana wasn't a percentage, right? It was $35 an ounce, a flat number. And I thought this was interesting, because if you go with a percentage, then whatever estimate you think you're going to get out of marijuana money is going to go down, because the price is going to go down. And if the price goes down, the percentage of the tax of that thing goes down as well. But if it's $35 an ounce, well, if the price goes up or price goes down, doesn't matter. It matters how many people are consuming and producing ounces. And that's a pretty compelling argument for me, I think.
Yeah, it's like regardless, even if it was zero, you'd still get $35 for it.
There you go.
Which isn't half bad.
That's right.
Here people are paying $350 to $400.
Oh, they won't be here. That's for sure. We'll have $150 ounces by 2016 or less. Hey, thank you for calling in, Electric Bob. We appreciate having a little conversation about Arizona. We got to take a break, and when we come back, we'll wind up the show and wind up for the weekend.
The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
Ever wonder how often to change your bong water? The most effective method for baking pot brownies? The best destinations for a ganja getaway? how to hide herb in your car, whether to grow your own, how precisely to legalize it, or how something as wonderful as marijuana ever got to be illegal in the first place. Finally, you can find all these answers and much more in the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook, featuring 420 things to do when you're stoned. Since 1974, High Times magazine has covered marijuana in all its aspects and wonders, from cultivation to legalization to the herb's enduring and exalted place in popular culture. Packed with inside information, the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook rolls all of this collected wisdom together into a single indispensable ganja guide, including an entertaining look at marijuana's history, profiles of herb-friendly travel destinations and festivals, favorite potluck recipes from the High Times staff, smoking skills, advocacy and activism, essential marijuana movies and songs, profiles of famous cannabis strains, comprehensive growing information, celebrity endorsements, and much more. This is truly, finally, the ultimate guide to green living.
Please stop now. Yeah. Oh, I know me again, yo.
Oh, yeah. It's the first day of November here. I can't believe 2013 is almost over, and 2014 is going to be amazing. We are going to legalize marijuana here in my home state. Hooray.
I got my my registration card in the mail.
Yep, and they mail us our ballots. It's really cool. And the other aspect of the Oregon legalization that's an interesting difference than Washington or Colorado, we don't have sales tax. Right. So that whole issue of whether medicine should be taxed or not doesn't really come up here because we don't tax anything. We don't sales tax anything. So that's kind of cool, is we're not having to worry about whether or not, by legalizing it's going to affect patients in that way. Now, how it might affect these existing dispensaries is another argument we don't have to have, because before we went to legalization, we passed a dispensary bill. And I thought Anthony was right on when he was saying, Washington's issue was, it's unfair because they tried to regulate their dispensaries. The U.S. attorneys said, boo, so they didn't. And then now that there's legalization, the U.S. attorneys are saying, well, we're going to bust those guys that aren't regulated. Well, wait a minute. We tried to regulate you bastards.
Yep.
That ain't fair.
Unintended consequences.
That sure is. And I really hope that by passing our legalization in 2014, that is, talk about a social laboratory. The Pacific Northwest, Washington State, and Oregon, very similar demographically, geographically, politically even. Western Washington, Western Oregon, very liberal. Eastern Washington, Eastern Oregon, very conservative and rural, right? There's a whole lot that are similar between the two, but their legalization schemes will be completely different. Washington's will be overtaxed, no home grow, and an awful per se DUID, and Oregon's will be the opposite of that. And we'll be able to show the data and say, see, you didn't have to worry about the per se DUID thing, because when we'll compare Washington and Oregon's traffic stats, we'll find they're about the same. It didn't really matter to put in the per se DUID. And when we compare what they made from taxes, we'll find that Oregon's $35 an ounce thing was a better idea than trying to do it 25% at 3 levels and stifling all the business possibilities there. This is going to be amazing chance for us to be able to see this in action. And to know that the new approach Oregon is 4 plants and 8 ounces, and that will be the conservative measure. There will also be a measure on the ballot for 24 ounces and 24 plants. So, the problems we have here in Oregon, huh?
Oh, boy.
And remember, when you get those ballots, and if we do have all 3 of them on the ballot, vote for all 3.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying.
I'll take all the legalization I can get.
Any step forward is still a step forward.
That's right. Hey, that's all the time we got for this week. Thanks for joining us. Coming up next, the Jody Emery Show at 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Then the replays of these 2 hours at 6 and 7. And then coming up at 8 o'clock, Herb Thrasher is in here live for 2 hours of metal and thrash. Then at 10 o'clock, 2 hours of Halloween-themed Big Daddy Fink Funky Roller Rink. Thanks for joining us for Left Wing Larry and Brian the Red. I'm Radical Russ, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.